What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vortex Nation podcast. I tell you what, tag prices, hunting license prices, fishing license prices, they increase periodically over time. We've seen it before. This is the year 2025. We're seeing these things in a variety of states. My original home state of Washington, the home state I live in of Wisconsin right now, we're going to see some license increases as in regards to how much they're going to hit your pocketbook. But I tell you what, none have garnered the attention, the buzz, just like the mental backlash as what the state of Utah has been talking about this year. Frankly, it had me reeling. I'm pretty point invested in that state. I know a lot of folks are talking about what's going on, what's going to happen, maybe what has happened in regards to tag price increases there. To help us break it down and tell us what we know as of right now, we have Mr. Austin Atkinson from Huntin' Full. Austin, welcome to the podcast. You guys specialize in big game tags. You're based out of Utah. You're my boots on the ground. You were reporting from the field. Austin, what's going on with Utah big game and licenses in general?
Thanks, Mark. I mean, if you've ever wanted the spotlight, all you got to do is something like this and your state will get the spotlight. It is just, it has been wild here in Utah because, like you say, people are invested and most of us have a finite number of resources. We can't apply and hunt everywhere we want. So we have to pick and choose which applications we go for. And Utah has really kind of thrown the book at us.
Yeah, it's wild. When I heard this, I was like, wow. Like, oftentimes you'll see like a state, oh, we haven't increased tag prices or, licenses in X number of years. And it's kind of an incremental thing. And more often than not, like, I can digest it, or I can mentally justify it. Man, at least what they were proposing originally, it was staggering. Like it left me having to make, like, I was like, I'm gonna have to make some decisions here.
100%. And that's what all non-residents are saying. Heck, even residents like myself, we were left shaking our head when this came about because this went the backwards route. Instead of going through public process, justifying why they need more funds, setting the fee price recommendations, going to public comment, and eventually to the wildlife board. That's the normal process. This was backwards. The legislation during our legislative session in Salt Lake City said, we need more money for some extracurricular projects, if you will, for the Division of Wildlife. So we're going to set the fees for you, and then you guys can work backwards and figure out how you're going to raise these funds. So they, early in the session, said, let's double all non-resident fees. We won't touch resident fees at all, but they just did a straight 2x equals on all non-resident fees. Luckily, before that bill was finalized, our Division of Wildlife got a up to language. So the language was written, you may not exceed, but may be less than these double amounts. So that's when the rumors started and the spotlight was shined on Utah. What? You're doubling it? What? You're pulling the rug out from under me? And things got a little chaotic around the 1st of March. As we found out, the Division of Wildlife went back to their finance guys and said, holy cow, we got to come up with X amount of money in millions of dollars extra. We've only been given the leeway to charge non-residents. Here's our max fee. But how are we going to do it? People are going to freak out if we double it. So we pushed on them as best we could. We're residents, but we represent a lot of non-resident hunters. And we said, please do not double the hunting license fee and the application fee. That'll just kill your amount of applicants. Like, we all have a limit of what may be okay to build points, what you can get away with on your credit card. For me, it's probably close to that $200 mark as a non-resident.
Right.
Like, when you start flirting above that for a non-refundable license and all my species fees, like, man, I start saying, is this a real strategy? Is this just a raffle ticket? And that's where Utah it's a balancing act of your odds versus how much it's going to cost every year.
Yeah, for sure. And when I looked at that, I was like, if they double this, I'm like, okay, I'll I'll play your game and I'll see this through because I'm pretty pot committed at this point. But after that, I'm going to consider this the one time that I hunt in Utah, and it's like, well, and I'm in my head, I'm like, well, is this part of their strategy? Or are they trying to, I guess weed out some folks like me, which I'd consider myself like a pretty, like maybe like more than average interest in hunting, a little bit more than average in what that I'll financially commit, and even when I commit those funds, it's, it always stings, right? But I was like, I'll see this through. But after that, like, I can't afford to continue to play the game. So like you said, that
Sure.
up to language was critically important.
It was. And since that came out, we said, you have to tell us. And they said, well, our fiscal year doesn't start till July 1st. We said, it doesn't matter. You have to tell us why we still have time to apply this year to decide if we're going to play the game. So July 1st, there will be an increase in license fees only, which isn't going to matter to most of us because we've bought a license for this year's application. But it's going to go from $120 for non-resident to $144. So up about 20% increase on the licenses. Okay, we can stomach that. That's better than we hoped. But starting September 1st, so after this year's draws are over, everything else jumps up. All permit fees, all application fees, general season deer, general season elk, everything goes up. And some of those prices do double, in fact. Like bison goes from $2,400 to $4,800. Sheep goes from $2,200 to almost $4,000. So everything is going to jump up. Think 2026 draw year and beyond.
Wow. I wasn't aware of that. I was mostly paying attention to like the deer and elk tags, which I did see,
Sure.
you know, the general tag. What did the general tag, like a general deer tag, it went from what to what?
Yeah, so right now general deer is 418 and it's going to 599.
Right. So
So
again,
just under 600.
not the worst thing, somewhat in line with some other states that you might see out there. General elk was what am I seeing here? I've got this in my notes too. Is that 613 to 849?
That's correct. Yep. Which that's it, just a general hunt. Most people spike hunt on that, or they archery, spike or cow elk, any bull units. Not a great hunt,
Okay.
if you will.
But then you do go into, the limited entry elk 1050, which is kind of in line with some other states out there.
Sure.
Like I said, still a number I have a hard time swallowing, but I'll do it up to 1950. So I mean that's almost another double of the tag price.
Right. I mean, you're talking the most expensive elk tag that there is. Wyoming special elk, right under that $2,000 mark. But with this one, 1,950 plus your $144 license, plus your application fee, which is $21 per species, you're over that 2,000 mark.
I mean, that's crazy. And I mean, yeah, like you said, there's maybe a parallel with the Wyoming special elk, but you don't have to do that either, So it's like
Exactly.
you have a little bit of a choice there. Man, this is, like I said, even looking at these numbers, I'm still a little bit in that boat. And like I said, maybe this is part of their strategy, but like I'm thinking, I'll play this game, I'll see it through. But that's tough on the pocketbook. Those are tough conversations to have at home if somebody maybe values an elk tag more or less than another person. I don't know, man. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Like, was there explanation provided, or maybe you touched on that early on, but like, what's the reasoning behind this
Sure.
dramatic jump?
I'll tell you, there is no purpose in pricing people out or trying to curb point creep. Although this may be the best way to get rid of applicants and improve your draw odds, it's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to buy a bunch of sitla land or state trust lands that are going to come up for sale, and they want the Division of Wildlife to buy them to preserve them for a wildlife management area, keeping them public. Noble cause, right? It may be the right thing to do. They need to generate somewhere close to $100 million over the next few years of extra cash to purchase these as a division. And why did we saddle only the non-residents? I don't think that's proper. On my side, I wish not residents had to pay a little bit more, right? But why just stick it to the non-residents? But that's where we're at. Hopefully, we can see a bill in the next few years that'll maybe increase the residents, but are non-resident fees going to jump back down? I seriously doubt it. They need the money. But what you say, Mark, is perfect. What do I do? Right. And Utah's been a tough one to recommend non-residents to spend their money in unless they're already spending it in the other states and they want to add Utah. The reason I say that is there's so few of non-resident tags. When you look at the draw odds, we are not kind on our quotas. There's just not enough elk, deer, sheep, moose, goat, everything. It's really tough to draw a tag. So offsetting that annual price, which if you apply for all 9 species next year and your license, you'll be over $330 out of pocket. And they've got you, Mark. They've got you because most applicants, when they start allowing us to apply as non-residents for all species, that was around year 2000. So everybody's got 16 points, and they're like, "Look at me, I got 16 points. I feel loyal to Utah." The reality is, everybody has 16 points. So if you don't have substantially more than that, your long-term strategy is just apply and pray, honestly.
One thing I think about is, I'm by no means, rich, wealthy, but I certainly have more discretionary income than I did at, let's say, age 18, fresh out of school, something like that, with an incredible passion for hunting.
Mhm.
Something like this is like, it's not even on the table, I would say, in general, for a lot of folks who are, maybe they've been into hunting, they want to continue hunting. Maybe they live in the Midwest and like, oh, I've always dreamed of hunting elk. I mean, that's a pretty big barrier to entry. And like you touched on earlier, it's like, yeah, it might increase your draw odds as people drop out, but then it becomes not an issue of passion or it's just an issue of, it's like means, if you have the means to do it. And, having these younger generations who likely won't have the means, not be able to go enjoy those things, they're going to do other stuff.
In Utah, we're famous for selling off a lot of wildlife permits. We auction off a lot of tags. We sell a lot of tags. And I've always looked at that and said, I'm not a rich guy. I can't buy those, but the money's going to a good place. And maybe it keeps it cheap for me, the public draw hunter. And this may be departing from that, where, like you say, that the non-residents that really have a hard time with this are even the guys that live close to Utah. Maybe they live in Idaho or Colorado and they just want another opportunity because it's tough to draw the tag they want in their home state. And a couple hours down the road, they're getting stuck with huge tag prices. It's like, gal, is that fair to the everyday guy? Is this the North American model of conservation? I mean, we know everything's more expensive, inflation, everything. But is it this much more expensive? I don't know. Just a few years ago, like 2019, we always recommended Utah. Hey, the hunting license is $65. It's $10 a species. You know what? Put in for everything. Try to get lucky. You're under $100. Now you have to really say, should I take my money to the sheep show and throw it in a raffle? Should I apply in New Mexico or Arizona where it's substantially cheaper? You may have to make that hard decision.
What is, and I guess a lot of folks are everybody's kind of in a different place perhaps, or there's, buckets of people that are in a similar place. But I mean, what are you guys recommending as a strategy for a person who maybe has, maybe you have 5 points, maybe you have 10 points, maybe you have 15 points. Like, do your recommendations of continuing to play the game change on that?
Yeah, for everybody it's a little different. But if you're just trying to draw a good deer, good elk tag, it would be really hard to recommend Utah over building points in Colorado, Wyoming, applying in New Mexico, applying in Idaho. I mean, you're going to be cheaper out of pocket. You've got a good random chance, and you're going to have to start considering Utah as a raffle state. Even with these high permit fees, which most of us can come up with the money for a permit if we get lucky and draw. Okay, we'll figure it out. But it's the non-refundable every year out of pocket that are really going to drain us. And so if you're applying in all those other states and you just want to add on one more, consider it a raffle chance because that's what it is. And you're going to be closer to that $300 mark than where we've been.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes and how it shakes out over time and if it accomplishes the goal that they're trying to achieve.
The scariest goal and the underlying issue we're all worried about is this a race to the bottom? And are all the other states that are still a lot cheaper? Arizona's $650 for an elk tag. Are they going to look at Utah right next door charging 2,000 for overall smaller elk, less tags, and say, oh, me too? And it's going to be a me too movement from these other states. And that's what's really scary.
Yeah, I was thinking about that exact same thing. You're like, well, I'm not going to do, you're talking about options. It's like, well, then I'll put it over here. But if, like you said, if it is that race to the bottom, that me too, what does that do to hunting as a whole, perhaps? And again, maybe at the end of the day, from a financial standpoint, there's still enough people to apply and take those tags at those increased prices, but at what detriment to, your average guy that just wants to go hunt.
That's right. I mean, Utah is a special state. I'm camped up here in the mountain, actually joining you on Starlink at the moment, and I'm looking outside at beautiful red rocks. I'm on the Zion unit, red sand. I'm like, this place is pretty special, and it's public land as far as you can see. And it's like, man, I wish more people could get to experience it, but I don't want to become this. I'm ultra expensive and price the average guy out. We're all Americans. You're all a non-resident somewhere, and we need to be fair. But this is just the cards we've been dealt.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always say the more people who can hunt, the more people who can go to these places within reason. Like, I know we have to manage things appropriately, but if people aren't going, they're not going to know how special they are, and they're not going to care about it. And again, I think there's a waterfall effect that can happen because of that too.
For sure. Yeah, it's like what do you do with your kids, right? Utah's already not super friendly to youth hunters as far as prices go. I would definitely take my kids to Colorado, New Mexico, Idaho, Wyoming for a heck of a lot cheaper, for at least deer, elk, and antelope than I would come to Utah if I was a non-resident. It's just it doesn't make sense long term.
Golly, it really is so unfortunate because it is such a special state. When it comes to funding, the purchase of these lands, which, like you said, very noble thing. I think a lot of people
Mhm.
at the end of the day would want that, right? Myself included. But is the hunting license, the tag fee lever, the only one that they have to pull, and then are hunters the only ones taking on this burden when likely other user groups would be enjoying those lands as well?
Yeah, I mean that's a complicated question, but it really is. I mean, you have PR funds, Pittman Robertson funds, you have match funds that the division gets, but they are self-funded. At least in the state of Utah, they get very few general fund dollars, so they have to fund their entire agency by fishing and hunting licenses, permit fees, and when you don't adjust the 90% of permits or licenses, which are residents, you only play with the 10% of non-residents. Yeah, that's why we see substantial increases because the numbers just aren't there.
Interesting. Man, this is I don't know. Like, it's hard for me not to look at this from a personal perspective, just because I'm probably, and I know I'm not as invested as some other folks out there, but like, I'm also probably in a spot where a lot of people are, just kind of that that medium, like, I don't know. And then, like you said, moving forward, do you continue? That's a tricky one. And hopefully not, but hopefully we're not in this position with other states moving forward too, and continuing to limit options.
Just look at Utah and look at your draw odds and realize that everybody is creeping up together. So half the permits go to the guys with the most points, half do go random. So you always have a chance in Utah. It's just a very expensive, small chance. And that's where you have to say, can I tolerate a very expensive raffle type opportunity, knowing that my 10 points now will never equate to a trophy elk or deer tag because I won't live long enough. And that's just the reality. You may get lucky over the next 10 or 20 years, but are you ever going to be guaranteed? Never for any of the good hunts for any species.
Man, that's a tricky one.
It is.
I'm not leaving this conversation feeling awesome, Austin.
I'm sorry. I mean, we always said do not apply in Utah as a long-term strategy unless you have interest in general season deer or elk. The general season deer hunts, easy to get a permit, only takes a couple years for a good unit as a non-resident. So we would say, yeah, if you're going to do general season deer, put in for everything else and build points. Well, now general season deer, $600, it's not getting easier to draw. It may be a one and done. Maybe you want to hunt general season deer once and then take your money elsewhere.
Yikes. Anything else that we've left on the table with this topic other than just the state of melancholy I'll be in for the rest of the weekend?
The sad part is I can't say email your wildlife board or submit public comment because that ship has sailed. They've been directed from the legislature that gives the Division of Wildlife their authority and the director his authority. And they've had to work backwards into their financial models to come up with these numbers. So the only thing we can do is play the game or not. Can you boycott? Can you try to hurt them, if you will, by non-application? We all know enough people are still going to play. It's just a personal decision. Do what you need to do, but don't throw money at Utah thinking that it's better than some other state for your funds, because there may be a better opportunity out there.
Gotcha.
You remember, Mark, when Montana they were like the first ones to go to $1,000 elk tag, right, on their general elk tag. And we were just flabbergasted, like, who's going to pay that for an elk tag? And now look, it's middle of the pack for an elk tag. And so times change and all the states continue increasing, but it's definitely scary for the kids. It's definitely scary for long term.
Yeah. For sure. Well, Austin, thank you for joining us and giving us a rundown on this topic. This is a timely one. In fact, for our podcast release schedule, we might move something around. We might just, publish this as an extra one. But, I'd say at least we know more than we did a few weeks ago, and it maybe wasn't as bad as it could have been, but man, it is still a pretty tough pill to swallow. This is a bitter one.
Yep, it's definitely look in the mirror and decide what you're going to do. The application deadline for this year is completely unchanged, so all the fees will be the same through the April 24th deadline. Any permits you draw will not be charged any higher fees. So this is your last year, if you will, and then starting this summer and fall, everything goes up.
Gotcha. Cool, man. Well, hey, once again, appreciate it. Thanks for the rundown. Enjoy the rest of your camping in this absolutely beautiful landscape. Who knows? Maybe any time that I spend in Utah is going to be just camping as well.
Well, come on out. We'll show you around.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hopefully this information helped you maybe refine your application strategy this year. Man, like I said, tough pill to swallow, but we will forge ahead. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.